Okay, another tutorial. This one is on transport of water through plants. And on the sheet I have already drawn a plant, well, a diagram. The root system is here, the stem, and then the leaf is up here. And what I've highlighted here is that this here, I've got one rather large cell in the leaf, and I just wanted to highlight that this cell is photosynthesizing, and so it's using light, and that's why it's in the leaf at the top of the plant, so it can capture as much light as possible, and it's taking in carbon dioxide through the stomata on the underside of the leaf, and it's also taking in water, and it uses the carbon dioxide, the water and the light to make glucose for itself, and then oxygen as a byproduct. So the water is coming in through the roots from the soil down there like that, and what happens is the water has to travel up through the plant to the cell, and the way that it does that is it goes through a network of a series of tiny tubes called xylem. So let's just add that to the title. So this is a type of tissue, plant tissue. It's a group of cells that makes up a tube that goes all the way through the plant, and that's what this little diagram here, this little bit of the diagram shows. Now on my diagram I've just drawn one tube, but I think what you've got to remember is it isn't just one big tube that goes throughout the plant, but it's a collection of tiny tubes, a little bit like capillary tubes, tiny bundles of tubes, and the water goes up through those. So in the second tutorial, we're going to think about how the water actually travels up through the xylem and the forces that are in action to pull the water up through the xylem. But in this tutorial, I want to focus on what's happening in the root, and how the water is going to get into the root. So I've drawn here a cross section. It's a kind of tissue map, if you like. This is, if we were to cut the root here and then have a look at a cross section of the root, it would look a little bit like this. So we have the epidermal cells here. We have the endodermal cells here, endodermis, and we have the now I haven't drawn all of the cells in here because it was going to take a very long time, but these are the root cortex cells. So it's a big layer of cells in between the epidermis and the endodermis, and then this in the middle is the xylem. So we can see that if the water enters through here, okay, so it's got to get across the epidermal cells, and then it's got to wend its way all the way through the cortex cells, and then it's got to get across the endodermal cells, and then finally it gets into the xylem. So I just wanted to draw that so that you've got an appreciation of how far the water has got to get to just to get to here. Yeah, so this arrow here represents this little journey that the water has to take across all of those cells. Okay, and you'll notice that some of the epidermal cells have, if I just draw a little enlargement, some of the epidermal cells have little extensions from their membrane and cell wall. So if I just finish this little tutorial by drawing a little diagram of one of these cells. These have got very specific adaptations. That's one of the things you have to find out for your task. And these have extensions. That's one of their adaptations, and you need to find out why. They are called root hair cells.